science of fermentation, drying, and bean grading. We have here, you have the cacao tree, and you have the harvest. So we get the harvest and break this one and put in a bucket, and later on we put this to a fermentation box, and there's something going on inside the bean while doing this fermentation. So we can see in here, initially you need sugar, the pulp sugar, the one in the mucilates there in the bean, and lots of types of sugar there. Then we have microbial activity in the pulp, which is engaged by the yeast, lactic acid bacteria, acetic acid bacteria, which do the biochemical changes within the bean that would provide the flavor, the taste, and aroma. And later on, we make some turnings until we go drying. Okay, this is the story of fermentation. We have 3 stages in here. One is the aerobic phase, controlled by or governed majority by the yeast. Then we have the transition between anaerobic and aerobic phase, governed by lactic acid bacteria, and we have the aerobic phase. And let's take this one by one. First of all, we have the first day, the first 24 hours, and we have here the anaerobic phase, controlled by yeast. Take note, sugar is needed. They need this here for the conversion. And you can see the process. This is technical, but I will make this laymanized. So you have here a sugar converted to glycolysis, so that in other words, they can produce different kinds of organic acids and other compounds. We have the amino acids, fatty acid, and most importantly, ethanol, which will be processed later. Then, in the second stage in here, 48 hours, this is now the function of this lactic acid bacteria. There are 2 types of lactic acid bacteria. We have the homofermentative lab or lactic acid bacteria. Again, this make use of the sugar, as well as the heterofermentative lab. And they both use the sugar, but there are 2 pathways that they have. This homofermentative produce 85% of this lactic acid here. And the other one produces different organic acids or metabolites. We have here the ethanol and the lactate, which will be processed later on, and other kinds of acid. So we have here the aerobic phase. Aerobic, you need oxygen. Kinakailangan dito. Kaya ito yung sinasabi na turning. So we have the first 2 days, wala mo ng turning. They do not need oxygen. So on the 3rd day, you need to have oxygen. That's called the aerobic phase. And this is governed by this acetic acid bacteria. You can notice that the product of here and here is now processed there, thus producing this acetic acid and lactic acid and all these things. So I'll give you this, and this is our foundational understanding on the fermentation that we are doing. Here comes now the traditional conventional fermentation that we are adapting. We have of course, we harvest. And for the pods, ang ginawa ng iba, they do store or make season for a few days. Iba naman wala. Others no. Then we have the pod breaking, bean sorting. We have the pre-fermentation activities. In pre-fermentation, some drain the juice there, some do not. They go direct. And in fermentation, we have also variations in fermentation. We vary in the fermenters. Some use the wood, the plastics, and all other types of fermenters. And we vary also in the turnings. Some follow the 2-1-1-1, the other 2-2-2. So there are variations on that. Then as well as the days of fermentation, depending on the temperature and the temperature or the condition. Then for traditional or conventional drying, we have here, all of us follow the continuous sun drying. Either direct to the sun, or we go to the, the all-weather, the UV plastic. Then we dry up to 7-8%. Okay, here's the good news and the bad news. These are that in our NICER program, we conducted surveys in different locations in Region 11 and 12. What you can notice here, acidic in different degrees. That's why, na problema kayo, bakit well market, maasim naman yan sa atin, maasim. Ibig sabihin, ilan lang yung nakapasa dyan, kahit paano, above 6, below 6, mga ganun, may degree of acidity siya. In other words, maasim talaga. And then, we can notice the blue ones are just found in one is in SNA, another is in Amas, North Cotabato, another Santa Maria, all the rest. Without mentioning some even famous chocolatiers here in Mindanao, maasim. That's why, the reason. And nobody reached to that 6.67 level, the slightly or near the neutral. What's the implication of this? So here's a guy who is a close friend of Chris Padriga. And so, as told already a while ago by Ma'am Army, that he was invited come here to teach us the technology. And so, he went here because what is the background? This guy, he was surprised. Why in place in Chihuahua, this is located an area in Venezuela in which they produce quality beans and import for 400 years, and also particularly Criollo also. And then they export quality beans to Europe, and nakapila yung nagbibili doon because of that one. Why? So he stayed there for 2 years and studied the technology. Then he teaches us how to ferment, to dry, etc. We did experiment. We have this comparative analysis between conventional and new fermentation and drying approaches. We follow the conventional approach. Here is the procedure. Here we harvested. We used the same variety, UF18, with 75% pod maturity. And here we season here because that's being adapted. Pod breaking, bean sorting, no draining of juice for both. No draining of juice. Then we differ in the wooden fermenter. For here we use both. We use dalawaan, but they differ in the thickness. We have the 1-inch thickness. Then we follow for both here the approach 2-day anaerobic, 3 days aerobic turnings, and we did the temperature monitoring of the beans and the ambient. And for the drying, we have continuous sun drying using that all-weather or the UV plastic dryer, and we monitor also the bean temperature as well as the ambient temperature, and we dry up to 7 to 8%. And for this one, the new protocol, we use, as I told you, we have the same variety and pod maturity without seasoning. We do direct, and we do not drain the juice. And here's the wood lawaan, the same, but they differ in thickness, 1.5 inches in the sides and 2 inches below. And for the 50 kilogram, both are 50 kilograms. And we follow the same 2-day anaerobic, 3-day aerobics, and temperature monitoring. And for the alternative, the new drying approach, this is called intermittent drying. What is intermittent drying? Simply, not continuous sun drying. What is this? So in other words, you take the temperature of the ambient or environment, then take the temperature of the beans, then allow it, the monitor 20 to 30. After 30 minutes, you what do you call this? You mix the beans, spread again to cool down. So be sure na ang temperature, this is already the optimized one. But before this one, there are some problems. The one he told to us. That's why it's important we optimize it, or else the result is still massive. So this is optimized already. So we do the 30 minutes, and after that one, you mix the beans to allow other beans for sun exposure. Then, so we have allow evaporative cooling, and the early morning to early noon drying, then piling, covering of beans before noon to skip from sun drying, and repeating the process until 7 to 8%. So here's the setup, the experimental setup here. So here is the box, the one I told you, and you can notice the different types of box in here, and there's in the corner there are some teether just not to have this, the beans will not be stored beside, to allow proper mixing. Yan, this is experimental setup in which they have the monitoring of the temperature. We have manual monitoring, then we have also this data log monitoring to really monitor. We did the fermentation now, conventional versus the new. Yan, yung turning na yan between the two. So we did the bean cap test so that we can monitor the what do you call this, the fermentation. Then we did the drying, conventional, the continuous drying, and other intermittent drying. Here are the results. You can notice here that the new technology or the new approach in here has higher temperature compared with the one that we're adapting by 1 degree at least. And this has an implication also in the proper fermentation. This is the data log temperature, in which there actually you can monitor the high temperature in that wooden fermenter. Then this is the temperature of the ambient temperature versus the bean. You can notice here that in intermittent drying, there should be a 1 or 2 degrees difference between the two and monitor this one. And seeing to it that the temperature will not really be that much. And this is very critical in the first 4 days. Here is the one that we are using in the Philippines. We continuously dry, so even on the 4th day, dry na. Pero nakita natin na we can see in here that even the temperature really rise up even at the 4th there. Okay, this is now the reason. This is the moisture content. In 4 days, dry na yung continuous drying, but intermittent drying still go to around 6 or 7 days. Here is the result. You can notice that the 5.5 really acidic compared with 6.98 doon sa intermittent drying. Very slightly or even neutral pH. And this is the pH that the chocolatiers need. This is the chocolatiers need. And they found out this with the less acidic, they can have good flavored chocolates. Not only that, intermittent drying allows evaporative cooling to open the bean cells to release acetic acid. Remember, this is now the science behind it. The temperature, high temperature, closes the bean cells, trapping the acetic acid, not releasing it, makes it acidic. But if you have this intermittent drying in here, it allows the bean cells now to open to release. But there should be close monitoring of the temperature for it not to close. Here's the titratable acidity. These are now the organic acids. We can see in here in detail the acetic acid and lactic acid. Sinong mataas dyan? Again, the conventional that we're adapting. And even 35% difference in terms of acidity. Then, this is now the alkyl pyrazines. Alkyl pyrazines, these are compounds that are associated with flavor, aroma, yung kasarapan. And there are 5 compounds in here, but we were able to detect 3. And what do you call this? There is a difference of 40 to 50% yung alkyl pyrazines between the two methods. In other words, mas masarap itong new approach than this that we are adapting. Okay, we validated this. We tried this more than around 10 trials just to get, because we followed the original instruction of our friend, but we were able to find acidic still. So we tried to optimize what are those. This is just a summary of those. When we extend the drying in the afternoon, what will happen? Still acidic, 5.3 to 5.4. Okay, we remove the afternoon, we just do in the morning, but still we get still acidic. Why? Because the bean temperature reached over 40 degrees. And in order to have that 6 above the pH, going to very slightly acidic, morning only with bean temperature about less than 35 degrees. Important notes ito after validation. Do the drying from early morning up to before early noon. Yan siya. Then drying at noon to afternoon is not advisable since the temperature rises rapidly. When it rises over 35 degrees, the beans become acidic. Then monitor the bean temperature not to exceed 35 degrees. Do the turning when the beans reach 34 degrees. Mag-turn ka na. Then siya. When the bean temperature continues to rise, usually going early noon, stop the drying and pile the beans. How to pile the beans in here? You just put the net. Actually, there's a net there. That you may put it kung lesser ang volume. You go to below, being inside in a ventilated area, or if you are it's a large volume, you cover it with even yung mga cardboards, and then cover again with something yung light colored trapal like that, just to not exposed to the sun. Then we observed that once the bean cells are closed due to high temperature, more than 30 degrees, they remain closed, making fermented beans acidic. Kasi napansin na kahit nakuha na siya, pero ituloy mo pa rin yung drying, acidic pa rin ang results. Then the first 4 days are very critical. Thus, strictly monitor the bean temperature. And another important point here, extra care and monitoring of bean temperature in drying under UV solar dryer, because the temperature is so high that it is difficult to monitor. That's why if you're drying there, open all the edges of the dryer to allow air flow like that, but continue to monitor that one. And when you make drying already, some people do instead of covering the beans, they cover the the dryer itself with the trapal so that there will be continuous flow of air. Like that. That's another innovation. Science of bean grading. Well, the science of bean grading is more of the fermentation you do. That's why during fermentation, because remember, there could be, I cannot, it will not be conclusive, but the sugar is needed by the microorganism. If you drain it and drain it and drain it and drain it, I don't know what will happen, the less sugar. So that needs to be verified. But in here, there should be, in turning, see to it that all the beans are properly exposed with the air, because that for aerobic fermentation. Hindi lang yung nagwakap, because some of the beans are not really exposed to air, thus yung fermentation is not properly done. We can see this in some examples later in the fermented beans. And for the art, it's just a matter of common sense, removing all those distorted beans before marketing. And we can see this. These are examples of this. There's a Philippine national standard for cacao or cocoa beans. You can download this one to study further how you make it. You just get 100 grams of it. So defective beans. Ito mayroong certain 100 grams, and there are different kinds of defects in here. The moldy, slaty, insect damage, or germinated. Samples of these are yan. So we have some clustered or clump beans, broken or cut beans, germinated beans, yung nag-germinate doon. We have infected beans, we have moldy beans, slaty beans, flat beans. Just see this one in your samples in 100 grams. Then you just divide the number of beans over this one, then you can get the percentage. And based on the PNS, there are some percentage there to classify into A, 1A, BC, 2A, BC. Like cut test is also important. In cut test, we can detect in here the over fermented or under fermented. You can see in here yung medyo nag-crack siya, they're called fissuring. There's a good indication of good fermentation, the good browning like that. This is our real examples here. You can notice in here some are under fermented, some are properly fermented. And you can see also in cut test all the even other kinds of defects that we have seen a while ago. So this is example of fissuring. So these are another samples of over fermented, well fermented, the brown and the white, the slaty. What are the impacts of this bean grading? One is the marketing. That's why in our training in here, we told them that before you go to the market, now make i-separate mo yung good beans to the bad beans, so that when you have this checking of the market there, you can already display those good ones. Another implication is in the processing or product development. If especially you make the tablia or the chocolates, you have to really remove all those defects in order not to affect the taste or the quality of your product. Next is competition. I know that one of these years, magkukumpit-kumpit kayo lahat dito. And you will be quarreling with one another. Sino ba talagang maganda dito? Sa competition. For the bean grading, as Ma'am Ami said a while ago, out of how many that one, Ma'am? 3 lang ang na-accept. For what reason? Dahil sa moisture content, sa mga defects na nakikita, sa packaging, you know the procedures, and especially submit those quality graded beans, and you'll have a chance. What are the implications and applications of high-quality fermented beans, dried and graded cacao beans? One is the high-quality chocolates. As I told you already, the one that's with low acidity, they have a good quality. This has been experienced by also Steve, because he's one of the top chocolatiers in US, and also with other chocolatiers in the Europe. You have high-quality tablia. You can notice that there are some famous chocolatiers here, but when you drink that one, maasim. But now, we'll try this one siguro, getting better na siguro. Then we have quality cocoa products, iba-ibang class of beverage, etc. So we can improve the quality. And next, so you can demand high bean price, hence high profit and income. But this development of marketing system a while ago. However, the bean quality is not a function of fermentation. It also involves genotype and variety. Yung ating ginagamit ngayon ay Trinitario. Usually, they have 40 to 50% Criollo. Because Criollo has really have good taste. When in fact, we made analysis in alkyl pyrazine, double the value of alkylpyrazine compared with the Trinitario. And here's the news to everyone. We developed molecular markers to our project, and there were over 200 people who claimed, I have the Criollo. Why? Puti ang beans. What we did, we get samples from them using those markers. We were able to identify these clusters na ang kiniklaim nilang Criollo ay nabilang pala sa Trinitary. So, but itong cluster ng Criollo, meron tayong 100%. In other words, na we have different cluster, 96 of them for now. And we are continue to analyze with our dose. Registration of our Criollo in the Philippines as one, we will just help kung saan sino yung source. We will acknowledge the source para makita na yung historical or yung distribution dito. And we need to classify them according to percentage of coefficient. In other words, merong 100%. Tama ang 100%. Aanin mo yung 100% na iyan, mababa ang yield. Masakitin sa pest and diseases. Masarap na lang. Baka meron tayong clusters dyan, deviants dyan, na masarap na, may hatas pang yield, at saka resistant pa. Who knows? That's why we have a new project now, the Smart Budwood Nursery, etc. We will be traveling, and we have started already characterizing this 96 Criollo clones. And we have also collected some of those to reserve this in the Philippines. The true Criollos can be found in Philippines. This is our gem. This is our advantage. This is a national treasure. Why? The Latin Americas, the Americas are looking for the true Criollo now. Even the nationales, there are different types of cacao. And we have the Forastero, Criollo, may nationale pa nga, ganun. Even nationales ay wala na. So, we have here, because why? We are geographically isolated. And I tell you, it takes 350 years in the making to have that kind of cluster in Criollo. It takes 5 years, 350 divided by 5, mga 70 generations, ayan na siya. Kasi natural pollination, ganun siya. So, kahit paano, nagkaroon natural selection, natural breeding, natural crossing, and here comes now. Okay, about this has impact in the cacao futures, Philippine cacao futures. I'll be looking at this for you. Some of you are new to this futures thinking, but this is, pag wala tayong nag-isip sa hinaharap, babagsak, walang patutunguhan. In other words, we look forward in 2052, that the news in the world, the Philippines chocolates conquer Americas, Europe, Asia, Pacific. Because what we have the Criollo, we have the good technology, we have Indibasim. Then, the Philippines from number 72 to number 2 cacao exporter. 2052 pa yan, ha? We have to supply first our domestic needs. Then, the cacao farmers among the wealthiest in the Philippines. And these are not fantasies, this could be done through concerted efforts ng ating mga different agencies at sa ating mga producers. Then, ayan siya. Pero hindi mangyari yun pag wala kang ginagawa sa 2046, 2040, may gagawin ka para mangyari yun sa 2034, may ginagawa. Kaya ngayong 2023, we are still in the right direction. Particularly, in 2034, at least 1 million, di ba? May, ilan yung cacao natin? 2 million hectares. At least by this time, meron 2 million. Sa 2040, something like that, 28, 500,000. In other words, we have projections. We have projections to do. We have now comprehensive national program on the cacao production market. We have now the cacao products. We have R&Ds now in cacao. And yung training and skills development and capacity building are the products or the people who are doing this training that we have. R&D research never stops. There is always something there to go up and to discover, and tulungan po tayong lahat. Kung sa tingin nyo, kailangan improvement dito, tell us so that we will do research on it. So, you'll be part of the R&D dito. And for that, I say thank you very much.